Hi everyone, this is Kevin Hadley with hh2 Cloud Services. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to join me today for this presentation. I also want to thank Alliance for giving us this opportunity to showcase our product in front of their client base. We have a number of people who are registered today. So I'm going to wait for about 30 more seconds to see if we can get a few more people logging into the system, and then we will begin shortly. Thank you very much. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get going with those who have joined me today. Again, I just want to say thank you to Tim and everyone there at Alliance for their support of hh2 Cloud Services. We've been a strong partner with Alliance for quite some time. So I just have a quick question here. Okay, and so we appreciate everybody joining me today. I'm going to do a couple things right now, and I'm going to go to my sharing screen, and we're going to hit play there. So you should start seeing my screen here. So let's do a couple of things before we get started, just to make sure everything looks good. First and foremost, I want to make sure that you can hear me. If you can hear me on your GoToWebinar panel, before it heads off to the side, could you raise your hand in the GoToWebinar panel, just so I can make sure that everyone can hear me there. Perfect. Okay, so it looks like a few of you there raised your hands there, so that's great. The other thing I would like to know is if you can see my screen and my cursor. It says hh2 Remote Payroll, and it has a PC and phone, etc. If you would just raise your hand to make sure that you can also see my presentation. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone. Now, everybody is on mute. I am recording this webinar, and we'll have that, and I'll send it to Tim, and they may put it up on the Alliance website as well. So it is going to be recorded. If you have some questions, a couple of other things to talk about as well. The product or two products we're going to review today are the hh2 Remote Payroll and the hh2 Field Reports products, and we'll talk about each of those in the presentation today. And I believe the invitation or the advertisement for this webinar that was sent out to both Sage 300 and 100. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is I'd like to do a couple of polls, if we can, just to make sure. I just want to see who our audience is today. If you could please let me know when I launch this poll, which accounting system you're currently using today. Are you using Sage 300, Sage 100, or anything else out there? I believe most of you are Sage 300 and 100. Okay, perfect. Right now it's about 60-30 with the Sage 300 contractor. Okay, so the majority of you are Sage 300 or Timberline and Sage 100. So that's great. We'll talk a little bit more about that and maybe some of the differences. There are not many. Our software looks and feels the exact same for both products, but there are just some nuances that I will cover in the presentation. So we'll close that. So thank you for participating there. I'd also like to know kind of what everybody on board here today is using currently. Do you use pen and paper? Do you use an Excel document, Google Docs? Are you using another third party at the present time? Okay, great. Okay, very good. Just about 100% of you have voted. It looks like 40% pen and paper, 20% Excel, and some of you are even using other software currently in there. So that's good to know as well. So let's do this. Let's do, tell me a little bit about, because I'd like to know when I do my presentation, we'll show some of each of the devices that we support here at hh2, and I'd like to know a little bit about what some of you have out at the job site right now. Okay, pretty good mix. Looks like actually we've got a pretty good round mix. So we've got about 70% smartphones, 60% tablets, and 60% laptops out there. Okay, excellent. All right. Okay, well, that's probably pretty good for right now. That gives me a good idea of what I want to present and how I would like to show you the product today for our audience. So once again, thank you very much for participating in some of those polls. Okay, a couple other things. Again, because everybody's on mute, some of you have joined with mic and speaker, some of you have joined using the phone call or the phone, dialing in with your phone there, and that's great. I do have everybody on mute just because trying to answer a bunch of everybody's questions at the same time, and sometimes we hear some background noise. So we'll leave everybody there. If you do have questions throughout the presentation, you're welcome to ask those. I do, I get a little icon that shows me that there's a question out there, and I'm happy to answer that throughout the presentation. I'll also pause at different times as well, so you can ask questions there also. So again, today we're simply going to cover the hh2 remote payroll and field reports. I won't take a lot of time on the slides because we've got a lot to cover in the 1 hour that we have to spend together. Let's go ahead and just play this this thing real quick. Just to let you know, with hh2, we are a fully hosted cloud solution, okay, that integrates with both Sage 300 and Sage 100 Contractor. Again, we'll talk a little bit further about that integration and what that means, because in reality, that's one of the most critical pieces to any software you should be looking at as it relates to time entry or field reporting, and that is a product that actually talks to your accounting system. The other thing I want to make note of in this screen is the fact that hh2 can be run on any desktop or laptop computer using your browser, okay? If you have a Surface tablet, that's kind of a mini laptop, but can function as a tablet. You would use the web browser on your Surface tablets. For those of you with iPads or Galaxy Notes or whatever, we have native apps also for both iOS and Android, okay? So we support both of those platforms with a native app. Now, when we're talking about a native app, and I'll cover this again, but what we're talking about is an app that I can download that's not a web app that I can actually use offline. You don't have to have connectivity. And again, we'll talk about those things. So I'll try to get to many of these today as we move through. Again, many of you are here today because you're still collecting time via paper. Some of you are doing it in Excel. Some are using some other software out there. Some of the problems you're having with those certain ways of coding time is how to get data from your accounting system. Is it an on-premise software, and do I have to install it on everybody's things? And does the particular application that you're currently using, can it be used offline? So those are some of the issues. How hh2 has solved the problem for over a decade for customers is our synchronization with Sage. And so we're going to go through this little bit here where it talks about the integration. So you're joining me today from your office. Now, many of you, whether you have your servers in-house or you have them co-located through Alliance or whatever, doesn't really matter. But you've got a server that you currently have Sage 100 or 300 on. When companies sign up with hh2, we come along and install what's called a synchronization client that sits on your server that you have your accounting system located on. With that synchronization client, we begin pulling over your jobs, your extras, if you're using extras or sub jobs. We pull over the cost codes that are associated with those jobs. We also pull over your standard cost code list. We also pull over your employees, your pay types that you've created in Sage, your payroll groups, or excuse me, your pay groups if you're a Sage 100 customer. In Sage 300, it's really a class or certified class for an employee. Your GLs, all of that information is synchronized from your accounting system to the cloud. Now, we don't just do one sync and pull the data over. We do a continuous sync. And so every hour in the background, hh2 is syncing or finding data that was just entered in Sage and making sure that it's uploaded to the cloud. Now, what that means to your individual employees in the field or employees in the office, whoever is coding time, it means that they are going to have access to the latest information that's in Sage, your latest jobs, the cost codes that have been set up on the job, your extras, your GLs, even your pieces of equipment. And that's one thing I failed to mention is that we also sync equipment from your equipment module. And I'll try to show you a little bit of that on the demo today as well. Now, as your employees are coding time, again, wherever they may be, whether it be a single employee doing their own timesheet, whether it be a foreman or a superintendent coding time for a crew, as soon as they start coding time, those time records are automatically saved to the cloud, unless they don't have connectivity, and then it's saved locally on that device. And then when they do come into connectivity, they just launch the hh2 app again, and it will automatically do a sync in the background and upload it to the web. Now, once those records are in the cloud, you will determine also as a company how you want those records to be routed. Do I go from an employee to a group manager to a project manager to payroll? Or do I just simply have it go from an employee to payroll? Or from a group manager to payroll, or several other ways. hh2 is very configurable, and you can even allow people in the approval process that don't necessarily have to be approvers, but they can be report viewers, and they just may want to see time but don't necessarily need to approve it. So a lot of configurability with hh2. Again, I've talked about multiple time entry methods, multiple way of coding your time, jobs, cost codes, employees, equipment, GLs, various things. Also multiple levels of approval that we've just discussed. We collect units for employees, pieces of equipment as we talked about. If you also do mileage, per diem, again, any pay type that you have set up in Sage, specifically Sage 300. In Sage 100, you only have 9 to choose from anyway. But any pay type you want to give your people access to, you can do that in our solution. Again, we have a host of additional features and functionality. I'll do my best to show you as much as I can. We also have products. We will cover daily logs or field reports today. We also have a product for service management for both 300 and 100. We have an HR solution that seamlessly integrates with Sage 300 at the present time. And we also have a brand new document routing system called Document Flow for Sage 300 right now. Sage 100 is coming out shortly. And full release for this AP routing and approval system will be out March 31st. So just be aware of that. So again, thank you very much for, let's get into the demonstration and talk about what hh2 does a little bit further. So I always like to start out with the web, and 60% of you have laptops out there. So I'm going to log in as Grant first on the web, and then we'll kind of show you what it looks like on some of my other devices. If I'm a foreman, for instance, or just a regular employee, I have my own login, I log into hh2, and I go to this timesheet. Now, let me explain to you what you're seeing on the screen. And again, this is the live environment. This is not a, some program that I'm running on my PC. This is live using hh2 here. No, it's not a simulator. What you're seeing here is a daily timesheet for Thursday, February 21st, 2019. And these are employees that have been part of my crew for the week, okay? Down here on my time card, I see a job and I see some cost codes listed on this particular job. Now, one of the greatest benefits of using, or features I should say, of using hh2 is the fact that every day it remembers the job and the cost codes we've been coding to. So I don't have to re-enter those every single day like some other softwares do. It remembers that on a daily basis. So it could be as simple as coming in here and saying, Amanda worked 2.5 hours on weather protection, 2.5 hours on earthwork, and spent the rest of her day doing walls. And maybe some of my other employees just simply worked on walls, okay? Now again, my employees or my crew stays the same the following day. Okay. Now, where I put these time records are in a couple of boxes called pay types or pay IDs. You're seeing today just regular and overtime. And I know the question will come up. Well, what if I want double time on there and I want premium time? Or what if I want, other pay types to be visible every single day? You can do that. That's configurable within hh2. I'm keeping my time card nice and clean today. Now, how did all of this get on my timesheet to begin with? What if we're a crew, like a concrete crew, working on multiple jobs? If that's the case, I have the ability down here in the lower left-hand corner to add jobs and cost codes to my timesheet. So down here, I can click on the Add Jobs, go to the Job Selector, and let me talk a little bit about this view that you're seeing here. This is showing me the jobs that this particular manager has access to. So within hh2, you can configure which jobs and other information these people need to see. Now, one of the things I mentioned on the synchronization, because I always get the question, what about my extras? Can I do extras? And this is what you're seeing on the screen. I'm seeing the large high school, and this is an extra that's been set up on that same job. So we list the job number and then, of course, the extra fields. All right. So let's just say we're at a different job. So once I have a job in context, I click on the cost codes. And you can decide whether this is shown in what we call a card view, seeing each individual cost code as a card, or you can do it in what we call a list view. And a list view would just list all of the cost codes in order down in a list. So you can decide as a company how you'd like to see that, or not necessarily as a company, as a user. I'm going to say that we're doing footings, earthwork, and site utilities on the elementary school, okay? And those, let's kind of take one more step back. Let me go back to those cost codes for a minute. One of the other things I'd like to mention here is we are only seeing those cost codes that have been set up on that job in your accounting system, okay? In Sage 300, they have to be cost codes that have a labor category because that's what we're coding is labor. If you're a Sage 100 customer, they are cost codes that are on the budget on that job, okay? So just like to clarify those things as well. Now, please know that there are a host of other things that I can do. I can also add GLs, and I also have the ability to change someone's classification or pay group. And because our product is used throughout the US and Canada and really other places throughout the world, we have the ability to do a lot of things. But certified class is one of those that some people turn on because they like people to be able to change that. Okay, so I'm just kind of telling you some of the features that are available. So if some of my crew, Joe and Grant and Greg, worked on multiple jobs. Maybe they worked on earthwork for 4 hours on this job and 4 hours here. Okay, so I can just simply put in time. Now, inevitably, when I do a presentation, someone's always going to ask, well, you're not clocking these guys in and out. You know, how do I know that the guys are there? Really, we've found over the, again, past decade or over a decade that we've been in business, that this is a much more manageable, easier way to code time. But we have added features and functionality such as an attendance punch clock, where I can just grab an employee and clock them in for the day, or the employee could come up, put in their ID, and then they could clock themselves in for the day as well. We also have another feature called what we call an attendance worksheet. And I know some of you may specifically be in California. And this is where we run up against this more than any place other, and that is in California. They need to specify a start and an end time for a group or a crew. And if that's the case, and maybe you held a lunch, you can set a start and an end time. You can then select each individual employee or select everyone. I could hit select all rows. And then I could just simply clock in and say, hey, these guys, their shift was from 7:30 to 4 with a lunch, and then we took out the time. So just know, I'm not going to do a lot with that today. Just know that we have those available. We've also added the ability to, if they do punch in specifically on their own smart device or whatever, we can also set up GPS to where it shows you where that employee clocked in, okay? But again, I'm gonna focus more on the timesheet because this is what the majority, over 90% of our customers are using. So again, this is a daily time card. Now, let's say that someone new showed up today on Thursday and needed to help out with our job. So how do we get a new employee on here? We don't have to wait for the office to assign the employee. We have the ability up here in the upper right-hand corner to select a member. And if, let's just come in here and just put John. And let's say that we had the guy by the name of John that showed up. Well, is it John Doe, Jonathan, Egan, John Jackson, etc. So I just did a search, and let's say that John Jackson is the one who showed up today. So I can simply add John to my crew. Now, John may have, and he shows up on my second sheet because we show 7 at a time. John here, let's say that he just showed up to help me on the other job. I can put in, maybe John just showed up and worked for me 3.5 hours. From here, I have a couple of different options in which I may want to let the office know why I only have John on my job site for 3 hours. In hh2, we support something called unit specific comments. If I click back in there and click on that detail box, I'll just put in this. This is unit description. If I could spell, okay? So this is a unit description here, all right? So this 3.5 hours will have this comment following it throughout the time, and I'll show you what it looks like in the home office. You also have the ability to put in a comment. Now again, that just follows the day. And we'll kind of show some other features here as well. But that's how I get employees. Now both Grant, who I'm signed in as, and another manager can code time for that same employee. So just know that that's available. I will show you one last thing because, again, it's done not all of the time, but I want to at least let you know how it looks in hh2. Let's say that on this earthwork code on the elementary school, or let's just say the high school. Let's do the high school. Let's say that Joe Dirk was working on earthwork, but he actually for 2 hours on the high school was running a piece of equipment, so we want to change his class. So I do have the ability to kind of click the button up here, choose earthwork, okay, grab the earthwork code, and then I could change the class and say he was an equipment operator. And we'll just add that. And I know I did it quickly, but now on the large high school, I see 2 classifications. And so I'm going to actually break up his time for 2 and 2. Now, to explain this even further, when these time records go into Sage, Joe Dirk is going to get paid 2 hours at his standard rate. Whatever class he has as a default on his employee record, he's going to get paid that rate. But these other 2 hours that change the class, he's going to get the equipment operator rate that you've set up on that specific job. Okay, and again, Sage 100, it's called a pay group. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what things look like there. Now, let's go to what we call a weekly timesheet to just kind of show it to you. If I'm Joe Dirk or an office employee or anybody else, and I just want to see my time, I can come in here and just say, hey, this is what I worked all week, okay? So I can do a weekly time card where I see the days of the week, and it doesn't have to be Sunday through Saturday. It could be whatever your company is set up on, the days of the week, your pay periods. But he's got 40 hours. Let's take this one step further and also say that he came in or spent a couple extra hours on Friday. So I'm going to put 2 extra hours on Friday, and instead of putting in a unit specific comment, I'm going to put a comment for his time card that he had to work late. Man, my typing's terrible. Okay, we'll say that he had to work late today. Okay, so that's kind of gives you a look and feel of what this looks like on the website. Is there any questions that may have come up in regards to entering time today on this particular screen? And I am going to go to a mobile phone here and kind of show you some other things. But I just want to see if there's any other questions about this particular tab. Okay, I didn't see any questions come in. I am going to start mirroring my phone here so you can actually see what it looks like live on my mobile device. I just logged in as Grant again now on my mobile phone. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll do a tablet when we do the field reporting today. Okay, just want to make sure I've got all my data on my phone, so I'm going to mirror my phone here. You should see my phone start appearing in the background there. Okay, this is our mobile app, and one thing I didn't do on the website that I am going to do on the mobile phone, and that is put in some time for some pieces of equipment. There are different time entry methods available on the phone. Okay, we don't pigeonhole you into, hey, there's only one way to record time for a crew. Some people like the weekly time card on the phone. Weekly time card on the phone is great for one guy who has one line item. Like myself, I just code to overhead, and I just do my time card on my phone every week or every day. Also, the employee daily time. This is the one I really like, and then time entry. Those are my ideals. Then there is a daily time card on the phone, but I like the employee daily time. So I'm going to pull that one up for right now. And you'll notice that Grant Farnsworth, who I'm logged in as too, this is his timesheet, and his time automatically synchronized over from the web. Okay, so but if I let's go to a different day. Let's say that we forgot to do our time on Wednesday. So I click this back button here. These are my pay types, and I'm going to show you something else here as well. So let's choose a different employee. Let's say that it's Amanda Banks. And Amanda worked all day today on earthwork. It might be as simple as that. Now, there's some things that I can do from here. I can copy Amanda's time to the rest of the crew. I can put in comments. Let's go to a different employee and show you some more functionality. I'm going to go to Jake Bass. Let's say that Jake showed up and worked 4 hours doing temporary fences. So I'm going to put 4 hours on temporary fence and barricades for this employee. Now, let's say that Jake on Wednesday also went home sick, and I want to record some sick time for Jake. So I'm showing regular and overtime right now. If I split up my pay types that I want them to have access to, up here where it says field pay, I'm going to tap into that. And I have grouped my demo site to where if I choose the time off pay types, I would see vacation, holiday, and sick pay. Okay, and then you can decide, does the time get coded to a job or a GL? And we support both. I'm just going to keep it simple and say that we've got 4 hours also of sick pay. And here I would like to add a comment to Jake's time card for the day. So down here on my phone, I can click comments and I can tap in that box there. And instead of having to type on this small little phone, and I've got an iPhone 10, I'm going to use the microphone. When I click on the microphone, I can just describe why he has sick time today, because he has the flu. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save that comment. So that comment will follow Jake Bass's time card for the week, and the office will be able to see it as well. Now, some of the other things that just popped up that we have some things turned on, if he actually worked 8 hours and he was clocked in and out, you would see this down here in the attendance section, okay? Some things that are there, okay? So that's just some features that I would like to show you on the mobile phone. Let's go to the next employee just by tapping the next arrow, and here's Blake Beeman. So again, Blake can do the same thing. Maybe Blake worked all of his time on footings on this job, okay? And he did footings. And then let's go to one other employee. Let's say that Brent Damon today was working on the elementary school, but we needed to add a new code for Brent, okay? Down here, this is how I add codes on the phone. Tap the add button, go to the job, select my job. I'm going to select the elementary school. And we're going to say that he was doing rough carpentry, because that's a new code for us, and we're going to hit done, okay? And we'll just kind of reset this particular time card. So now I've got rough carpentry there, and if you just worked 8 hours on that job, okay? So again, a host of things that I can do right here. Now, as I mentioned, we give you a bunch of different ways to code time. Other time entries are if I've got an employee that I would just like to choose and say, you know what, Greg Jehoviak, he's got hours for Thursday, but let's put in the full week for him on one job. I can click the plus button up in the upper right-hand corner, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. This employee worked regular time. I'll just keep it simple today and say that he worked 8 hours on the large high school all week doing temporary power and lights. Okay, that's all my employee did. I'm going to hit finish and just add and reset. So I just coded time for Greg Jehoviak for an entire week. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Friday he worked on one job, and then on Thursday, on Thursday he worked on the elementary and large high school. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of see some of those things and many different ways to code time. Now, as I mentioned before as well, if I want my guys to clock in, there's the punch clock. I can tap on that, grab the employee, and clock them in, okay, etc. I'm not going to, again, go into a ton of that. One last thing I'd like to do is some time entry for a piece of equipment. So I'm going to hit the time entry right there for piece of equipment. I'm going to select the bulldozer and say that we had the bulldozer, and it's very much like the employee. I can keep this simple and say we use the bulldozer every day for 8 hours on the large high school, and I'm going to search for the earthwork code, doing earthwork this week, and I'm not going to change the revenue codes, and we're going to add and reset. Okay, so time was recorded. Now I have time records for this piece of equipment all week long. So if you're a company that charges the piece of equipment to the job, this is a great way to do that, specifically if you're a Sage 300 customer using the equipment module in Sage. So now there's a little bit of an idea of what it looks like on a mobile phone. Let's go ahead and approve it from the mobile phone. So right here we have an approval button right in the middle, and it shows me all of the employees that I have time for this week that are part of my crew. And down in the lower left-hand corner, I just hit approve. Okay, very easy. Everybody's been approved now, and I'm done there. Okay, let me just turn off my notifications here. Now, that's how I would do that. Now, some of you also have the employees sign off on their time. So if I collect or select the signature, and I go into somebody like Greg Jehoviak and say, Greg, I have you down for 40 hours this week. And Greg says, yep, that's what I worked for you. There's a little approval agreement that Greg can read. And I just tap there to sign, and then Greg just signs with his finger. Okay? And I could do the same thing on the web. But anyway, it's just a way to validate that the employee hasn't been injured and that he's agreeing to the totals on his time card. So that's the mobile device. That's what that looks like there. Let's go quickly back to the web and let's log out as Grant. Now, because we've already approved time as Grant in the field, I have time records going to Jeff, who's a project manager back at the office, and then we'll kind of speed things up. So I have a project manager in my approval process, and Jeff logs in and he sees anybody's time that's been coded to his or her job. Okay, I can see regular time, there's some sick time, I can see that there's a signature for Greg, I can see that for Joe Dirk, I've got a comment that he had to work late, which is probably why he has the overtime there. But what are project managers looking for? They're looking for a little bit more detail on their job. I can access that detail by either dumping this to an Excel spreadsheet and filtering however I would like. It's really nice to be able to do that. Or I can come into hh2, click on remote payroll off to the side, and do what we call a labor detail report. And this is where I have the ability to just scroll up and see everybody that was on my job. Now, if I just wanted to see one job and not all the jobs that these employees, excuse me, Jeff is over both the large high school and the elementary school, by the way. If Jeff's just said, hey, wait a minute, all I want to see is time that's on the elementary school, that's all I'm reviewing today, then he would just see time records that are on the elementary school. And he just scrolls up. It's nice because I can see the job and the extra and how many hours. And again, there's a host of other things that I can do there. Well, let's go ahead and we'll make some changes at the other one. Let's say that the project manager looked at the timesheet, said, yeah, I'm happy with it. So the project manager could either click right here on the thumbs up to approve. I'm going to leave 2 people unapproved like I always do in a demo, and I'm going to log out. So let's now log in as the payroll admin back at the office. So my payroll administrator comes in here. They can do it every day. They can log in from home. They can look at hours anytime, anywhere. If people have time in hh2 and the time is not at your level as a payroll admin, it's going to be red and it's going to say the word promote. Okay, meaning there's time in the system for Amanda, but people below me as a payroll admin have not approved it. And there's several ways I can review that. I can click on the quick look button, go to the approval log, and I can see where her time's been approved. Now, I've got multiple approvals because I do a lot of demos, and it just doesn't clear out my approval log. Okay, so just FYI there. Okay, let's log out of that. Let's go ahead and promote the time to our level and say, hey, let's get payroll done today. I'm going to change that. Now, let's say that we want to review everybody's time, and I don't want just to see, you know, their total hours and by pay type. I want to see that same detail that the project manager saw. I can click on remote payroll. I can come over here to what we call time record entry, and I like this screen in case I need to make a change. So let's just keep scrolling down. And we may make a change and say, hey, wait a minute, on Jake Bass, I noticed that his sick hours were going to this job and cost code. I'd prefer it to go to a different cost code on the job. So I can actually click on that specific line item and say, you know what, I would like this to go to the information systems code. Okay, doesn't really matter, but we'll just change it. So I can change things there. Same thing with the overtime. And I can say, hey, wait a minute, he had overtime on the earthwork code. We would like to put that on either a different job or a different code. I can click on that. It's got my 2 hours there in context and say, hey, I'm going to actually put that towards site utilities on this job. So I can do the same thing that I showed you earlier. So as I make those changes, if I'm happy with the time and I've made every change that I need to in the system, all I need to do to get it out of hh2 and ready for Sage is to click approve right up here and then click this button right here. Now here's where the only difference really is between Sage 300 and 100. When I click this Export Transactions tab right here in front of me, in Sage 300, it's going to create a text file that I will then go into Sage, open up Sage, Payroll, Tools, Import Time, and I'm going to import my text file. If I'm a Sage 100 customer, we are actually using the API in Sage 100, and when I click on this button, it will actually sync all of the data down into the daily payroll time record entry in Sage 100, or the 551 daily time entry record. Okay, so let's go ahead and export that transaction, and we can open it up there, and it's just a simple text file. Again, that's what Sage 300 would be doing, is pulling this out. Everybody sometimes will ask me about certified jobs and if everything's broken out accordingly, and the answer is yes. I believe probably 95% of our customers do certified jobs at some point in time, and there's no problem there. We did have a question that came in, so let me go ahead and take a look at that question and see that there. I'm not seeing the question there. Somebody had raised their hand. If you do have a question, feel free to just type it in, and I'd be happy to answer that if you do have a question on anything that I've shown you here today. Okay, at least on the time entry. We will get to the field report. Okay, so the question was asked, and Stephen, that's a great question. The question that Stephen asked was, is the API functionality planned for 300 CRE? And the answer to that is no. There's really absolutely no reason for us to go through any type of API into Sage 100 or 300. And the reason for that is because Sage has done such a great job. When you import anything into there, it will let you know if it didn't like anything on the import. It will accept all of the other records except for the records it didn't like, and then it will tell you. You will go in every time just to the error folder just to see if anything rejected in there. So we really like that functionality and decided we did not want to bloat our product to try to replicate every single thing in Sage in regards to that import. So we like to simply go through Sage and do the import, but that's a great question. All right, there wasn't any other questions that came in, so let's do this, and hang on if you would. Even if you're not interested in the field reports, I will talk about pricing at the end, but bear with me. We're going to do a quick field report before we sign off today. Let's go back now to Grant, okay? And I like to do these separate so everybody can kind of get an idea of how payroll goes through. So let's log in as Grant and let's take a quick look at what field reporting looks like on the website. So I'm logged in as Grant. I could have done payroll, and then now I'm going to do a daily log. So I'm going to say I want to create a new daily log today. Okay, and because I'm on the large high school most of the time, it remembers my job, it has my day, it remembers the report type that I typically choose. So I'm going to say, you know what, create the daily log. Now, this is one view that we have at hh2. We just added it. There is a tabbed view that you can see, but I'm not going to go back and forth there. I'm just going to show you here. Once I create the daily log, you'll also notice that it brought over all of the employees that I just coded time for on that large high school. So I don't have to duplicate my efforts there. It just does it for me. Now let me just do a couple of tabs on this, and then I will end up doing a few tabs. Excuse me. I will end up doing a few tabs as well on the on an iPad. okay? Because I want to show you a different device today also. Let's say my subcontractors were here today that were here yesterday. They were the same subs. However, let's say that after I added that, I realized, hey, I shouldn't have brought over the insulation company because they really weren't here. I can click on this trash can and I can just get rid of the insulation company. Okay, I just want to delete that company. And then I could make changes to everybody else if I needed to as well. Okay, let's just go ahead and leave those there. If I need to add someone, I can click the plus button. Now, I get the question, where are these guys coming from? They're coming from your contacts or your address book in your accounting system. If we just scroll down, or we could have, let's say the drywall and stucco company was here. They sent 2 guys and they worked 16 man hours, and this is what they did. Okay, something quick. Again, this is just adding my subs. If weather is a big deal to you, I can add a weather entry by clicking this box here and adding the weather from weather.com. So I've got 26 degrees at this particular job site today. So we pull that information in. People usually don't turn on both the labor and the remote payroll tab. They just usually pull the labor from remote payroll. So I don't necessarily show that. So those are a few of the things that I like to do on the website to kind of give you a feel for what things look like there. If there was another question, please feel free to just ask that question in the question box. I saw another raised hand. So Angela, if you want to just type the question, I'm happy to answer that for you if you'll just type it in there. We'll continue on, and then once that question comes in, I'll take a look at it in a little bit more detail. Again, there's a lot more that I could scroll through and do. There are tabs that you can turn on or off in hh2. And also, as we go through this, you also have the ability, everything after this particular finalization tab is what we call a custom tab. So you can customize a number of different tabs within hh2. Okay, these are just tests that we've put in the system over the years. Okay, so that's what it looks like there. Let's quickly try and pull up my tablet, okay, and let you see what this field report looks like from a tablet's point of view. So I'm going to put my tablet in view here. Let's go ahead and blow that up a little bit on my screen so you can see it. Okay, and I know it looks blurry there, but let's go ahead and we're just going to go into the field reports tab right on my screen here. So I'm going to tap field reports, okay, and I'm going to change my report type because I want to be on the same report as I was on the website. So right here on the 21st, you'll notice that there's already some entries. So let's tap into that, and you'll notice on my screen I already have my weather. Okay, that's already synced over. If I want to gather the weather again, I hit the plus button on the right-hand side, say update from weather.com, and of course, a couple of minutes later, it's still the same temperature. Okay, so I can capture it multiple times. Down here, I've got my subcontractors. Okay, everybody that I just added. Let's add a couple more things, and then I've got to hurry through this. A lot of people like materials that have arrived on the site. So I'm going to hit the plus button. Everything that's added is done in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to put a ticket number 2345. We'll say that we received it today at 12. Amanda is the one who received it. We'll say that we received some pipe today, and we'll say that we received 50 units of pipe. And I want to take a picture of my receipt so I can say, let's go ahead and take a photo. And let's grab a receipt that I've got here from Home Depot. Maybe they were the ones who made the delivery on the site. And I'm just going to put a test note. Okay, so I'm going to type that one in. So it's easy for me to grab that information there. Now, someone did have, that other question did come in. Will employees be able to add subcontractors that are not already in the system and cost codes that are not set up on the job. Okay, so there's a couple of different questions there. Let me first address the add subcontractors piece. Yes, in the app, if I go to the subcontractors and I hit the plus button and I select a sub, up here I can click on the plus button and I can quickly add a sub that's not on there. Now, in regards to your question about can they select or add a cost code that is not set up on the job, and the answer is absolutely not. I do not want employees in the field adding cost codes that do not exist on a job. So no, we don't allow that functionality in hh2. Great question though. Okay, materials, let's do two more things. Let's do a journal entry. Just again, for the sake of time, and let's say that today, due to the snow, we had to stop work on the job site. So instead of typing, once again, I will use the microphone on my computer, and I could be doing this on a mobile phone, walking around the job. I'll just describe what the job conditions were like today, if anybody was injured, and why either there was a delay or why we didn't get as much accomplished today. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Okay, so there's my journal entry. And again, I can do multiple journal entries. Now, let's go down to an attachment. So let's say that I wanted to also let people know or see what things look like on the job site. So I'm going to hit the plus button here. And from here, I can do a few different things. I can either select an existing photo, take a photo, or do a batch import if I had taken a bunch of photos on my device. I'll make it simple today. I'm just going to take a photo. We'll do that outside my window today, the beautiful mountains here in Utah with some snow. If you guys are skiers, we'd love to have you come and visit. We're going to go ahead and put snow, and we're just going to type this time and save that. So that's how quickly I can add a photo or multiple photos to my field report. Again, there are other things that you can do, not just these standard tabs that we have in hh2, but you can develop your own custom tabs. And you would just scroll up and down and find the tab that you want to add attachments to. Now, one last thing here on this particular report that I'm showing you today, you can, if you want in the field, oh, you know what? I want to cover one more thing that I forgot on the field reports. For those of you who are capturing unit production, okay, if I want to do that on this job today as well, there is a place to do that. I'm going to tap unit production, and it shows me all of the cost codes on this job. But if I just want to do the earthwork code today and track unit production on the earthwork code, or from Monday through Thursday, I can say, hey, we're at 500, there, we're at 350 here, we're 200 here. So I'm just putting in numbers, and then I can also put in an estimated or percent complete. I can do that as well. We're reading this from job cost, and specifically for those of you who are Sage 300, okay? I can actually push this data, once I finalize the report, into two different areas. I can either push it back into the field reports in Sage 300 project management, or I can set up hh2 to automatically push it to job costs in the miscellaneous worksheets there. Okay, so if today we did 800 and we were very productive, I can capture my unit production. If I want to see more detail on that job or that cost code, I can tap on the cost code and see my original estimated units, my revised units, how many I have in place, and the unfinalized units. Those are the ones I put in today. Okay, so I can kind of see where I'm at on the job. All right, I just wanted to show you that that one last thing. Last but not least, if I wanted to, I can tap up in the upper right-hand corner, create a PDF, and it will generate a PDF right here on my tablet. Okay, I know you probably can't see that very well, but it shows me the day and the time and who entered the information on this job. Now, we did have another question that came through, so let me go ahead and see this. When you say that information was pushed into Sage, is that via the API or export-import? Great question there. Again, Steve, this is automatically pushed in through the API because I don't need to validate the information here. So yes, it's an automatic import through the API and through that same sync tool that I spoke of earlier. Great question. All right, so that's really the hh2 field reports. I'll show you one last thing, and then we'll discuss pricing as fast as we can. Let's go ahead and pull back up our web browser, because oftentimes people in the office need to see the data. I'm still logged in as Grant, so I'm going to stay there. If Grant's a project manager and he needs to see the details, you'll see here's all my subs, there's my weather entry, there's the materials that showed up, there's my journal entry, and there's the photo that was just taken on the tablet. And if I want a little better view of the photo from the tablet, I can see that there, okay? So again, you can add as many attachments as you need to as well. From here, I can also click on this and export it to PDF, export it to Excel, whatever I need to do, okay? Everything is automatically saved in hh2. We don't delete your data, so you can go back 10 years if you've been using our product and take a look at a log that was done 10 years ago. Okay, that's hh2 remote payroll and field reports. Now, last but not least, let's talk quickly about pricing. I can click on the products. So I went to hh2.com, go to remote payroll, and click on pricing over here on the right-hand side. We are not ashamed of our pricing at all. In fact, we beat most of our competitors, and especially with those that actually synchronize with Sage. For remote payroll, getting into the product is $199 a month. Okay, I don't really care, or we don't really care how large or how small your company is. Everybody that signs up for this particular product gets an invoice the first month for $199. You are signing up for a subscription. So at a minimum every month, you would be charged $199. But after the first month, you will be charged based upon the total number of employees or pieces of equipment that actually had time coded for them. So if you had a company that had 100 employees, but let's say that only 74 of them had a time card for the month of March, you would be invoiced $319 on April 1st because you fell in this particular tier. Okay, there are no long-term contracts to sign. $199 is your only upfront fee. We include 8 hours of complimentary training and implementation, just like we're doing today on this, but we will actually be using your data and your site as we train you and your employees. Okay, so that's remote payroll. Products, again, let's go to field reports. Field reports pricing is right here. It starts out at $99. Today, for you, I did one report. I started it on the web, and I finished it on the tablet. Okay, that counts as one report for the month of February for me. Okay, this includes 4 hours of implementation and training, which is again complimentary, and then it's based on the total number of reports. So real quick, if you have 20 jobs or 10 jobs and you do 22 reports during the month on each job, because that's maybe the average working days, you would have a total at the end of that month of 220 reports, or you would pay $152 that month because you would fall in that tier. Again, everything we do at hh2 is based on usage. We do not charge by licenses or seats, okay? So anybody in your company that you would like to use our product can do so based upon their user status. So that's hh2 Cloud Services. Again, there's a host of other products as you see here. We also do pay stubs if you want your employees to see their pay stubs, etc. If you would like to get in touch with us here at hh2, one, you can talk to your representative there at Alliance, or this is my information here. Again, my name is Kevin Hadley. My email address is khadley@hh2.com, and this is our 800 number. Either myself or a member of our sales team are usually picking up that line. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you would like a copy of this, please feel free to reach out as well. And that's our services. We again thank you, and I want to say thank you again to Tim, who set up this presentation for us today. and everybody at Alliance for their support for well over a decade of our products and services. And that is hh2. If you have any questions, I'll stay on the line for another minute and would be happy to answer those if you wanted to put those down in that thing there in the chat box. Okay, everyone. Thanks again. Again, if you need to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out with this information here. We'll try and do a follow-up, see what your thoughts were about the presentation, and if you have any additional questions there. So thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye, everybody.